So basically, last week we went over a lot about like point control and identifying agency as two of our main focuses. Like basically the ability to not only pressure the objectives where we need to and be productive in our fights, but the ability to know when to be in and when to be out of fights, which actually enable you to fight for longer. In point control, we basically talked about coordinating spikes. The biggest thing to keep an eye on with these, with this, is just gonna be communication with your team. If you hear a spike or you're getting ready to spike something, you as a lead, if there are any lead bruisers or those unicorn lead IGVGs out there or whatever the fuck it is now, you know, just letting your team know ahead of time that you're going to be coordinating those spikes. You can get coolies up, calming on those cooldowns, and realizing that as soon as a grab goes out, that's not the time to dump. You have to wait a couple seconds. Declumping after those fights, massively important. If you nuke a clump, then there's going to be a response. Like, it's an equal and opposite reaction. There's naturally going to be army to fill that gap, and you're going to get rotated on because that's an empty spot. You need to declump to your point of agency. I showed it in a VOD last week, so it was a little bit easier to identify, but like agency is for the most part just where you're safest, where your army is set up. Sometimes your agency will actually be further into their back line. Sometimes your agency will be back towards point a little bit, depending on the situation. But for the most part, just look for the most blue bodies and not a lot of red bodies, and get to an empty spot within that and don't overclump. We talked about pre-pots and properly initiating. Every fight that you're going in, cleansing, especially as like a bruiser, still extremely important to have as a support as well. Cleansing is going to give you 5 seconds of not getting slowed, not getting those debuffs on you, not getting everything annoying. So that's going to be something that's absolutely massive to make sure you're utilizing. Another thing that a lot of people don't utilize properly is their gemstone dust. I personally don't run oak flesh at all. I think that even if you're getting hit by a bruiser, like, and it's the quote-unquote fizz damage, most of the pop that you're going to take is actually going to be from grab anyways. So like that's still Ellie. Gemstone is, in my opinion, hard bis for everyone pretty much all the time, unless you're like one of the people that gets gone on by schizos and shit, where it actually is pure fizz. But for the most part, just making sure that you're maintaining the proper use of your cleanse pots. We'll get into a little bit more development on like defense specific pot usage once we get into like actual, you know, week 3 stuff. But identifying agency was the last part of week 2. Spent a good amount of time on that, especially when you're getting into the fort and shit. On defense, it's extremely important to actually play areas like more than you're trying to play responsive. Like obviously you have to react and be able to adapt, but on defense it's extremely crucial that as a group, like, you're not overextending, you're not out of position. If your position is this backside of point, like, you've truly got to be playing that backside of point, obviously relative to your army. If your army is pushed up, you stay on that backside. But like one group being out of position can expose such a gap in an army, especially on defense. It is a defender heavy meta right now, but as we've seen lately, like there just hasn't been a lot of like success with defense on the lower end of competitiveness on the server. Like there's a lot of territories flipping and shit. I mean, Onion Gang's been holding. But other than that, like pretty much there's been a lot of flipping lately, I feel. So it's just important to recognize that like what the main causes are of losing the defenses, and I think it breaks down to a few really simple things. So keeping that formation, playing an area more so than just playing clump to clump. It's really important to be in the right place at the right time on defense so there is nothing exposed in terms of a weak spot. Identifying clumps on defense is going to be pretty much the same thing as offense, except on defense, like it's a bit of a tricky situation, because if you overextend, you put yourself very far out on both offense and defense, right? But on offense, you almost want to be pushing for the objective, so you need to take those aggressive chances. On defense, it's almost like a bend don't break mentality, I feel. Even if I'm your forward point and we're fighting up here, we've got good point control, like if they start to come in with a respawn, I'm instantly going to drop here. Whereas like if we're attacking and I'm forward and I see a respawn come in, my point of agency is going to be up here most likely. And just try to like draw them off of the point, so that way my actual point team can get tick. We're basically going to be trying to occupy and keep them off of that tick with this. So it's a little bit of the opposite side of things. It's just the ebb and flow of defense versus offense. On defense, you do obviously have a massive advantage as well with horns. So one thing that's very important is recognizing when you have horns. If you have a horn buff, you should probably fight around it. It's a really strong buff. If you don't have a horn buff, fight normally. Like don't take any super aggressive engages and stuff. But for the most part, if you're able to fight and you hear a horn go, you basically need to force a fight and like take that advantage. Super important on defense as well, more so than offense even, in my opinion, is making sure that you're playing your ground spells properly. And by your ground spells, I'm primarily talking about like Sacred's Orbs and Oblivions primarily. I keep saying primarily. But those are like the big three. I'm a huge fan of Orb, making sure that you're in that heal radius because just obviously Fortify is huge. Sacred, self-explanatory, always stand in Sacreds. As a bruiser, that's the number one.
Yo, is it time?
Yo, I've literally been down here. I've been just talking on stream.
Hello?
Hello.
Sorry, we're late. Was the Dusty?
No, I figured y'all were just pushing. I was just talking on stream.
No, we were watching Birdman.
Oh, that's fine.
We were watching Birdman's 1 hour M5.
Oh God. Oh no. Wait, M5?
M5.
An
You
hour?
gotta start somewhere, man. You gotta start somewhere. First one I've healed.
An hour?
I've never healed before.
Ape Academy's gonna be like 30 minutes this week.
I could have bought shards from Skibby 3 times.
Jesus Christ.
In the same amount of time, I could have bought shards 3 times and then done some work and made all the money back.
What up, Dossie? That's fucking crazy. Alright, well, sorry for your loss.
What's up?
Alright, we'll run it back. We'll run it back from the top. Because I don't know if anybody was actually watching.
Cutlass while we do this?
Yeah, go push Cutlass. If you guys want visuals, tune into stream. We're gonna be... Can I stream my fucking thing in Discord? Hold on. I don't know how dual PC works with this shit. No, I can't stream in Discord. Lame. I would have to stream my OBS POV. But yeah, basically, like, we're just talking about some basic defense shit. It's not going to be anything, like, too intense, so don't get, like, all caught up in that. It's going to be very basic, like, positional shit and ways to not lose wars. And one in particular, like, I literally was fucking doing a Dusty Willy cast of an F-baller war when they still existed. And I remember specifically, I was watching with Skibby and Milo, and F-baller was essentially farming as much as you can be farming, with being pushed back in your fort. Like, points were pretty back and forth, and then, like, once they got pushed into fort, it was just like they had complete stabilization. Their left side gate wiped their gate and then got too aggressive, and when they did, they pushed out, and they were fighting like near ramparts, just filtering that respawn wave and shit. But the entire respawn crashed them at the same time, and where they were so far out, they got hit with a rotate as well. So that entire gate goes down just because they got a little too aggressive. And it was like 22 minutes into the war or some shit, and just in the time of that one gate dropping and waiting for that respawn, they literally threw the war. They had 22 minutes of near perfect defense, and one gate just being overly aggressive and stupid sold an entire fucking Terry. So this is going to be a lot of stuff of just like, if you fuck up what I'm talking about, I'm not going to ask you guys to do anything mechanically difficult. I'm not going to ask you guys to do anything that requires a lot of brain power. It's going to be a lot of very simple things, but I'm going to reiterate that these very simple things need to be done perfectly. And if they're not, it's going to be exposed in a defense. It's especially going to be exposed in a defense since we're going to probably be against 15 to 20. Jesus, that scared the fuck out of me. There was just someone flagged in front of me. Holy shit, I had a heart attack. Because I have a feeling the OG's just going to pull up and bother me. But it's some random yellow guy for some reason. He's typing to me? Oh, strange. Anyways, I got distracted. Basically, it's a lot of really simple shit, but if you fuck it up, like, it's going to impact the entire defense. And like, if you're messing up this simple stuff, like, egregiously after we talk about it, like, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm gonna be pretty pissed off. So simple stuff. Listen up, take something from it. I won't take a lot of your guys' time, and then I'll even come help push tonight, and I won't be a piece of shit playing another game until Diablo comes out. Anyways, last week we talked about two primary things: point control, both in and outside of fort, and recognizing your agency. We talked about a lot of like attack-based stuff as well, but the attack-based getting into fort shit from the Vaudery doesn't really matter that much. So we're going to focus on those two things that are translatable for the recap. So for point control, the first thing that we talked about was really coordinating spikes. If you're a group lead, it's huge to identify when you're going to be spiking a point, where you're going to be spiking a point. Get that to your group even just a few seconds in advance. I try to give a 5-second heads up, and then I'll count down 3, 2, 1 with my grav. If you're counting down 3, 2, 1 with your grav, I typically will like throw my grav on 2, so that way when my team dumps, my grav is closer to blowing up. Otherwise, we can get like really staggered damage. Like if I told everyone to dump as soon as I threw my grav, we'd get nades, and nades would pop, and then blah, 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 blah. So basically just work out your timing as a group lead, whether you're an IGVG group lead, whether you're a bruiser group lead. If you do hear of a spike coming, save your big cooldowns, get a combo ready. If you don't have your primary combo, you need to throw something into a spike. Like it's unacceptable if there's a spike called and you have anything available to not just be dumping what you have onto that. Declumping after big team fights, spikes, clump wipes. If you kill a big group of an army and you make a hole in that army, people will fill that hole. It's going to be angry people because you just killed their teammates. You need to declump. When you declump, you're going to look to identify your spot of agency. Your spot of agency is typically just going to be where you're safest. It can be an empty spot on the battlefield, or it can be a spot that's controlled by your own team. If you're a forward point team, or you're one of the aggressive flex teams, your safest spot, believe it or not, is typically going to be deeper. Like getting into here, where you're in their midline and backline. The reason for that is if I run, I'm here, I'm fighting their bruisers on like top side of point. Their bruisers dump shit on me. If I run through, their bruisers now either have to decide to chase me off of point and pull back and condense, which is going to coordinate like a big clump here as everything condenses and then my army crashes. Or the bruisers stay on point and try to fight point, and you get free agency here next to a bunch of healers that shouldn't kill you and some decks that shouldn't kill you, providing our decks and kill squad are doing their jobs, especially on defense, because defense has a huge advantage. We talked about pre-potting and proper initiates. If you are a lead bruiser, for the love of fucking God, use cleanse pots and regens and gemstone dust before you go in. If I see it in your VOD, I'm gonna scream. If you exhaust yourself, like use up all your stam going in, I'm gonna scream. One thing I noticed with a lot of VOD reviews is that people love to not only dodge for movement, like they'll just be running somewhere and they dodge, but they also love to double and triple dodge for no fucking reason. If you have to double and triple dodge, you fucked your iframes, my dude. Like, just time it up. Relax. No, don't fucking duel me. Jesus, I'm blocking this person. Block player. There. It's fucking company list trying to duel me right now. Anyways. So, where was I? Pre-pots and proper initiates. Make sure you're utilizing your ship properly. Gemstone versus oak flesh was something that I actually heard pretty recently brought up. I'm personally a big gemstone believer. My reasoning for that is a lot of people will think like this is primarily clump. Like if you're a healer and you're getting gone on by like schizos and shit, subject to change. Like rock your oak flesh if you're taking more fizz damage. I don't know what happens on those backlines. But like for the most part, if you're in the clump, a large majority of the damage that you take is going to be magic damage. Even if you're getting gone on by a bruiser combo, a large majority of like that initial pop is actually going to be the grab detonate followed by the insatiable grab detonate. Not to mention actual detonate. So all of that's going to be LE damage. If you get hit with that, that's going to be the primary pop that kills you. Gemstone dust helps with that. Identifying your agency, we already mentioned that. One thing that's really big on defense as well, in addition to identifying agency, is identifying your ground abilities. What I mean by ground abilities are primarily Sacreds and Oblivions, but also your other Healy circles. As a bruiser, as an IGVG, as an IGVB, as anything that is like actively involved in anything, your number one priority before you fight has to be, do I have heals here? Because if you don't have heals, you could run in and you could hit the dopest fucking combo of your life, but you're gonna drop. Like you have 13k HP with full buffs. I do that in one combo. Now imagine that times 4 different bruisers, decks, supports. like everything. If you don't have heals there, you're not going to live. So making sure that you are establishing somewhere where you're not only healable within LOS and range of your healer's not getting fucked up, but you're also playing in those sacreds, playing in those ground abilities, playing in your oblivions. Absolutely massive. On defense, the biggest difference outside of fort that we're going to notice versus offense, like offense, when we're pushing, we're basically trying to create havoc. We're trying to go clump to clump, and we're just trying to wipe and force our way onto point. With defense, we're doing the exact opposite of that. We're trying to keep them off of point, or we're trying to bait them onto point to coordinate spikes. Now, there are going to be two different ways that we can go about this. And a lot of this breaks down to what the war strat is, like what the army diff is, all of this shit. But the way that I've typically seen like defense is structured is a heavy emphasis on playing areas over playing clump to clump. And what I mean by this is like you have your war plan, right? You've got your front team oppo, you've got your back team oppo. You've got your fucking bond teams, you've got your point teams, blah, blah, blah. On attack, that just kind of breaks down. Like, you wipe apart, and you're probably just going to the next clump. That's great. Force pressure on point. On defense, you cannot do that because that chaos and that pressure is coming to you. So if you're backside oppo team, and you've got agency right here, like, that's great. You can sneak up, and you can fight a little bit. But like, say the main part of your fight is top side of point and you're a backside team, if you're anywhere past like mid flag or just like supporting those fights, you're leaving your own backline so susceptible to their decks, their kill squad. And that's the stuff that really gets exposed in defenses, especially because those anchor teams are so important. Like, defenses are where it's extremely vital to like soldier just play your role to a T. I talked a lot about in like week 1 how you cannot play other people's roles in wars. There are 50 people, there are 10 groups. There's no way that your one group can successfully play your role perfectly and another group's role perfectly. You're going to end up trying both of them, and they're both going to be half-assed, and then we're going to get exposed in 2 areas instead of just 1. So playing that area, establishing your area control, and making sure you're not deviating from that assignment is absolutely massive. And this is just outside of fort. We're going to talk a lot more inside of fort about rotations, how to properly secure your gates and shit like that. Defense, consume usage is also a little thing that I've noticed that is a big variant from like comp wars to not so comp wars. One thing I've noticed in a lot of comp wars is that even if you're not a primary like haste pot user, like a bruiser or some shit that uses cleanses, everyone's going to want to keep 1 to 2 haste pots in their bags at all times once you can afford it. Obviously, don't force it initially if you're not a haste pot person. But if you can afford to keep your like haste pots in your bags, that can be the difference between winning and losing a rotation, getting to a rotation and initiating the fight verse 5 or verse 15. And honestly, like, setting a lot up with those haste pots because you can catch people off guard with a fast rotation. So as soon as you can afford them, I would recommend keeping at least 1. I try to keep 2 in case I get caught out fighting and need to rotate like point to point, because my group is typically more of a flex type group. But you know, do what's best for you. Definitely keep at least 1 for those rotates though, especially respawns as well. Playing around horn usage is also a very big thing on defense, both inside fort and outside of fort. Like, if you don't have horns up, great, fight normally. If you have horns up and you hear the horns, you need to calm that to your group, make sure your group knows that you have horn buff. But you guys need to essentially be forcing fights on horns. And by forcing fights, I don't mean running into their backline with no regard for your HP bar. I mean posturing aggressively, recognizing that we have the advantage because of horn buff and that we can push them back and regain our forward agency. So when we get horns, basically the entire army just plays a little bit more aggressive. That's all we need to do. We just move up a little bit, we clump up a little bit, and we just dump together. And with that horn buff, if we execute that properly and time it properly, we're just going to clear out our points every single time. Same thing, once we get backed up into gates, like, if we're able to play around horns, huge. Absolutely huge. With gates, a very common thing that I see... Testy. A very common thing that I see with gates once we do get to this phase, I hope we don't, but we may. A lot of people like to fight in this area, either right in the doorway or even a little bit outside of the doorway. And I want to explain why that's the dumbest fucking thing you could possibly do on defense. And I'm putting that delicately. Basically, what we have here, if you look at it from an overhead view, is you have a big ass V as you come into the fort, right? So you've got your stairs down into your shop. You've got this right here. This makes a V. If you add on this little doorway, you have what some people would call a funnel. If you take a lot of people defending a gate and you put them in the narrow end of a funnel against a lot of AoE damage, can anyone tell me what's going to happen to those people that are in the skinny part of the funnel?
Death.
Thank you. Holy shit, boys. So what I want to point out on this side looks like a gate to a fort, right? But if you look from above, holy shit, wait, is that another funnel? Holy fuck, it is. So then when they come through and they try to push in, look where they are now. If they're starting to get aggressive, I don't need to meet them at gates and run through 42 fucking grav wells and dodge 16 shockwaves just to wrecking ball a single healer. If they're getting aggressive, my IGs are going to anchor the gate, meaning they're going to drop their fucking wall and shit, slow them down. We're going to get AoEs up on the gate. My bruisers are going to shift back 2 steps. That's all it takes. You fight on the inside of this door frame here. As soon as they're pushing back, I'm going to play defensively. So this is going to be a little bit of just like bruiser philosophy and POV. If I know that I'm going to get initiated on as a bruiser and that they're going to come in heavy with grabs, I'm not going to try to grab their fucking grabs. That's just stupid. That's going to waste your grab. You're not going to get a cooldown off. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to pop my regens. I'm going to get in a sacred and I'm going to go, okay, throw your grabs on me. They'll throw 6 grabs. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull out my hammer. I'm going to wait for them to come in. And then I'm going to go. And then they're all stunned. One shockwave and everybody is stunned. So that's very important. I call it counter initiating. When you know that they are aggressively posturing, when you see 10 people start to run at you, that's probably an indicator that they're going to go on you. In that moment, your biggest counter isn't going to be stopping all of their momentum with this miraculous grab that catches 13 of them and you just stop all their forward momentum. No, their abilities are thrown before yours if they're initiating on you. It's your job to counter that. All you have to do to stop an entire bruiser combo is as soon as they throw their grab, you get your hammer ready, you see them dodge once, you shockwave. Pretty much every bruiser in a competitive war will grab, dodge, shock, dodge swap, mail. The reason for that is maintaining under max stamina to activate your opals in your weapons and all of that good shit. You're popping your shirking. It's just wonderful. So with those dodges, it's extremely important to time that up. Recognizing grab dodge. As soon as that grab dodge comes, boom, shockwave hits. That entire combo is done. Like a grav hits hard, especially if it's on a clump, but it hits a lot less hard than a grav mail fully powered or if you get shocked as well. So as a bruiser, that's the easiest way that you can literally just hold up an entire gate with that. If you're fighting, like it's okay to get aggressive and like hold up in the door. Especially if you have control of your gate, it's fantastic. But if you're ever fighting out here, you're probably wrong. Just as a general rule of thumb, there are very rare situations if you have a kill squad drop or you have like a call to go out like coordinated, and typically that call will be because of a kill squad drop, then it's okay to come out. But that one war that I was talking about at the start of this, F-Baller's gate had literally pushed out to here, and then they got wrapped from behind, hasted, and then they got a respawn wave from here. The entire gate got wiped, and then they just pushed in, had full agency, took point within a minute. And like I said, that was literally up until that point a perfect defense in terms of Fort D. So now that we've got that established, big kill zones, the funnel right here. And then if we can collapse and keep them off of stage and fight dummies. So at the base of stairs here, dummies is always a fantastic place for us to fight because we have the high ground here to support. It keeps them from accessing our high ground and it's going to keep them away from our shops. Fighting dirt is also nice. You can get support from hell. You can get supports from B gate, pretty much everywhere. If we can, we want to prevent them from getting up into shops early. This will typically be the job of flex groups, and this will vary based on war strat, of course, so this isn't like a set in stone thing. But one thing that I've noticed a lot, especially with the like the Dex Mercs, they are extremely good at getting up into the the top layer, the ramparts, and just controlling up there. I personally, in most wars that I've watched, have seen a lot of success with Kill Squad and Dex on defense, trying to control up here and really staving that off. There's an occasional rotating flex group that's like the medium flex group, but ideally you want your medium flex group to be down brawling and helping control actual points. If your Kill Squad and your Dex are able to handle ramparts, it's a huge thing. Basically knowing those kill zones. If they do get up into stage, we need to keep them off of respawns. If they get into shops, if they get into respawn area, especially backstage, that's going to hurt a lot. Protecting our respawn waves is huge as we get later into the war. It almost becomes the biggest prio. Once we get later into the war and we've got 40-second respawn waves, losing 10-15 people could be the difference between holding point and losing it. So in a lot of instances, playing a little bit heavier towards the back stairs, making sure that we're actually securing shit so our respawn wave can solidify and get back onto point is huge, because then we can actually dump point with a full army. Let's see. Rotating. I've seen some horrendous fucking rotations. Horrendous rotations. Both my group, a lot of other groups, everybody fucks up rotations from time to time. My group has tried a lot of different stuff, and this is one of the what works for you will work for you. But I have found a lot of success and a lot of viability in anchoring your IGVG. So typically my group, we run 2 bruisers, we run an IGVG, we run an IGBB, and then our healer. My IGVG will be anchored when we're an anchor group, and we're essentially matching numbers. If we have a full group outside, my full group is here. We're holding the gate. If we kill them, or we have a numbers advantage somewhere, or we need numbers elsewhere, then we're going to anchor our IGVG. And anchoring an IGVG means, hey, have fun. Sorry, your retirement build. You don't get to play the fun part of the game. You sit here and you make sure nobody gets in. IGVGs should typically be 2 on a gate with anchors, because you're typically going to be 2 groups on a gate. Making sure you're not stacking your walls as, those 2 people is huge. You can even coordinate who's going to take first wall on a push, blah, 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 blah. All super important stuff. I don't play that boring shit. I hit stuff. So to the fun part, actually being able to rotate. Sorry, IGVGs, have fun holding the door. I typically rotate with a group of 3 or a group of 4, depending on numbers. My group of 3 will be myself, my IGBB, and my healer. A lot of the time on defense, if I'm one of these side gates, I have a lot of success with healers being up here. We call this Everest. Just because you're kind of it's for those that aren't watching stream, it's a little jut out towards side gate on stage, that little triangle area. As a healer, you can see a lot here, and if your group rotates, then you're able to, follow them with the rotate quite easily. If shit goes south, you can also use this as a way to get up quite easily. You have a nice drop down into hell. Pretty much everywhere is accessible from here. Gives you a natural high ground, so LOS is a lot less viable. One thing that's super cheeky, healers as well. I don't promote this, but Heal Station, my old healer, may he rest in peace, like to get up here and fuck around. I don't really know if it's actually viable, but it was cheeky as fuck and nobody ever found him. So if you're a gate healer, I mean, I don't know if Bird approves that, but something that Heal did and had success with. Again, I don't know shit for healing. But
yeah, just be careful on that side of the gate, because sometimes you can LOS people with the
Yes.
curtains and stuff. So
the curtains?
yeah,
These little frilly things?
Yeah,
They got
if
holes in
people
them.
Go to the other side, you LOS them. The other side of that curtain.
That's
you LOS them.
toxic.
Yeah.
That's toxic. Okay, yeah, so if you're doing that, just make sure that you know what you're doing and you don't fuck your entire group, because that would be sad. But for that rotation, typically, we think of the fort in rotation purposes as 3 main points. Rotating groups should essentially be devoted to half a fort. I feel especially with medium groups, if they're trying to rotate ground level, having full fort groups or full fort rotations is very, very overwhelming and very hard to balance. So I've seen a lot of very successful like very, very good rotates that stemmed off of essentially like your right side group, B, whatever fucking letter this is, and then the back gate on this side as well, and then essentially mirror that. So that way you've got like your classic triangle rotation. If you start on the side gate, you can help, you know, secure respawns, you can help crash hell if you need to, but at the same time, you're not going to have to go all the way like C to A to try to hit something. Same thing with this. If you're coming in from B and like you don't need numbers at back gate or anything, both of those rotating groups could then just hit B at the same time, get a massive spike. I think that having, you know, rotating and matching numbers is the single most important thing in defense. Nothing in defense is going to be stagnant. It's all going to be variable based on like, okay, we started, you know, 10 oppo bond, 10 bond, but they're overloading 20 bond. We've got to make the adjustment. You know, our war lead has to call that out and our groups actually have to respond. But it's also on group leads that are near that to have the wherewithal to recognize that and fill into that. Same thing with fort. If you're a flex group, like, it's great to have the war lead call out exactly where they need you. It makes it easy, but you need to have a lot of fucking agency and like self thought as a flex group. If that's a role that you are put in, like identifying where you're needed is absolutely massive. The way that we typically identify that is as simple as reading momentum. If I look and B gate is fighting here, like on the bottom side of point, we probably need to go B gate. If I look and they are pushed up fighting like in the actual gate itself, then we're probably not going to go B because they've got that stabilized. If every gate is stable and you're one of these flex groups or your kill squad, go up, dude, especially early in wars. Like if you're a flex group, you can get such a free initiate on so many people if you just go up and drop. If you're dropping, for fuck's sake, make sure you pre-pot. If you go up to drop and you don't pre-pot and like you die because of it, I don't have any power to bench you, but I'm gonna bench you. Like just in my mind, you will be dead to me. You won't exist. So please, for the love of God, if you do that, it can be an amazing play. But if you don't pre-pot, you're fucked. So make sure you do that. A nice place to go up and in from is kind of like the side of the gate here. If you drop from directly above, they're going to notice you a lot easier and they have pretty good visibility of you coming. Whereas if you're going in from the side, you kind of like hug the stairs as you go up. You go where the little like side horn is over here that's currently empty. And then you can just kind of grab in, shock from the outer corner of your grab, get that gate. And the nice thing about this will be one of the instances where your actual gate anchors will want to come out and like fight here with you and just wipe that. The important thing after that to remember though is what we talked about earlier, declumping. You wipe a big gate, cool, it's gonna be great. You're gonna want to go out and absolutely murder everything. Don't. If you get a big wipe, you come back inside. Nice and safe, nobody dies, and then we set up and we do it again. It's very simple. Defense is the same thing over and over again, but it's eventually like the offense is trying to get the defense to fuck up once, late enough in the war that they can capitalize. That's all it takes. And that's why I'm saying, like, these are all extremely, extremely, extremely simple things. But if we fuck up once, if the fuck up is at 12 minutes, probably not going to hurt us. Great. If we fuck up at 28 minutes, we lose a Terry because of it. And that is how delicate defense can be because of those super long respawns and because of the potency of attackers on this server, especially the kill squads and the decks that we see murked against us. So, you know, just recognizing that, like, war it's fucking crunch time, especially on defense. It's not going to be making a lot of, you know, extravagant plays that are going to pop off and kill 30 people at once. And it's going to be doing a lot of little things right. It's going to be making sure that you're not trying to do too much and making sure that you're at the very most basic thing of it, matching numbers and just not being overly aggressive. Prioritizing reestablishing agency. And what I mean by that is gates are overwhelmed. It's all fucked. We're getting pushed in from everywhere and we've got a respawn wave that just came in. On our attack, if you guys have noticed, one thing we did extremely well before we flipped the point is we kind of baited it. We recognized around 70-75% that there was going to be a respawn wave coming in. Everyone saved up their cooldowns. We spiked the point one more time, and then it was clear. Now, just remember, if the point looks like it's going to flip, and we all collapse to the point, that same thing's gonna happen. Like, we did it to somebody. We cannot have it happen to us. So, if everything is fucked, and we need to reestablish at point, if you respawn, you're going to need to go in from an indirect angle to try to establish. Now, if we all just funnel in and onto the point, we will die. It's going to seem very fucking intimidating to just kind of ignore point as it's ticking, but we need to get to a spot where we can actually disrupt them. If you have the ability to, backline and healers is huge. We're going to have plenty of clump fight at that point, especially if it's a fresh respawn wave. You know, the move that I called the Jules Classic in fucking week 1, where you literally just go behind with your cleanse pot and shockwave a bunch of healers, can be one of the most impactful ways to reclaim agency. Especially late in the war. If you get a healer down, they're down for a while. That's going to cut off a lot of their bruisers. So just keep that in mind as it does get into those later stages. It's very likely that we will get point ticked at some point, and if we collapse on point and we fully ball up, like, we're going to get spiked. And if you get spiked on point at any point late in the war, you lose because of it. The last thing is baiting your gate. And this is something that I love to do when my group is anchored on gate, and it's something that's very easy to do. Now, when your gate is actually down, you've got a lot of room to play. You're typically going to be set up fighting under the actual doorway or near that doorway. Baiting the gate can come in many different forms, but essentially, your team's just going to play soft. Like, one way that I like to do it is actually get all of my stacks up as a GA, and I'll just kind of hop back. People are going to try to be hitting me as a GA. If I hop backwards and give like a little back dodge, they're going to follow up on that. Now, if you're truly baiting, you can literally have your IGVG or your IGBB hold their wall, and then as soon as a few people come in, you wall the gate off behind them. You're not looking to take every single person at that gate. You're looking to bait a few idiots in, and I guarantee this will work because we're not fighting supple dropouts or booga. Like, where, like, the creme de la crop brains are elsewhere. All 100, you know, all 100 slots. So if we can successfully bait that, and even as a bruiser, if you're standing in the gate, you get 3 people to follow you in, you get a wall behind them as an IG. First of all, as an IG, you're sick for that. That wins fights. But that's an easy 3 kills. That then enables... Do you guys remember how many people I said my flex group rotates with? 3! We're down 3. Flex group's off. Now we go B gate, we establish B gate, we help B gate, we help back gate. Matching numbers. It all relates to simple plays that can make a big difference over the course of it. All right, 28 minutes. That was good. I said a half hour. If you guys have questions, please fucking ask me before tomorrow. Like, I went fast because I want to actually be able to get out and help push tonight. But, like, this is all super simple stuff. A lot of it is positioning and just, like, it breaks down to not ego playing on defense. That's really, like, the basis of how I can explain it. Like, if you want to ego play on attack, fuck it, have some fun. It's attack. Like, you can play a little more aggressively. If you play aggressive on defense and try to ego play, like, you're going to lose the war for us. Myself, Mahjong, freaking bruisers at the top, bruisers at the bottom. Anybody that ego plays is going to be responsible for losing the war. It's not acceptable from anybody on defense. It's got to be just 50 people soldiering. And if we do that, I guarantee we hold this Terry. If we do the little things right in fort, I guarantee we hold this Terry. And if we fuck up and we fight outside of our gates, or we don't properly, like, bait gates, or we take stupid fights, then we're probably going to lose. And it's going to break down to that. But keep this shit in mind. Please, for the love of God, like I said, if you have questions, DM me.